On October 17th, US President Donald Trump will meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. On the eve of the meeting, Trump stated that Ukraine is planning to launch an offensive.
We will talk to him about the war. And we will discuss the fact that, as I understand it, they want to go on the offensive. I will make a decision about this. But they would like to start an offensive. You know that. And we will have to make a decision.
Trump also once again called on the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, to stop killing Ukrainians and his own Russian people. According to him, Russia has lost 1.5 million people in the war, mostly soldiers. Earlier, Ukraine's ambassador to the US, Olga Stefanishina, said that the leaders would discuss Kyiv's request for the supply of Tomahawk missiles and other weapons, as well as strengthening Ukrainian air defense, energy resilience, and expanding cooperation in drone production. The Telegraph reports that the US president is working on creating a Ukraine Victory Fund, which will be financed by new tariffs on China. According to media reports, Trump instructed Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent to discuss this plan with his European counterparts ahead of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to Washington. As Bessent stated,
Trump instructed the ambassador and me to inform our European allies that we support the idea of introducing this. Call it whatever you want. Tariffs on Russian oil for China or Ukraine victory tariffs on China. But our Ukrainian and European allies must be ready to join in. We will respond if our European partners stand with us.
The plan is designed to exert maximum economic pressure on Putin, whose war machine depends on support from China, in order to force him to come to the negotiating table. Meanwhile, Donald Trump stated that the Prime Minister of India assured him that his country would no longer buy Russian oil. The Senate supports the idea of granting US President Donald Trump the authority to impose 500% tariffs on China for purchasing Russian oil. This was stated by US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. The secretary noted that despite Beijing's statements about wanting to maintain peace worldwide, China's purchase of Russian oil is fueling the Russian war machine.
China purchases 60% of Russian energy resources. They buy 90% of Iran's. Soon, we will publish photographs provided to us by the Ukrainian government, which show that a significant portion of Ukrainian drones are made up of Chinese components.
Earlier, US President Donald Trump stated that the United States may halt trade with China in certain areas. Soon after, Donald Trump stated that the United States is currently in a trade war with China.
We're already in it. Without our tariffs, we wouldn't have any defense.
This was how the American leader responded to a question about the possibility of a long-term trade war with China if no agreements are reached at the upcoming meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. The meeting is scheduled to take place in a few weeks. The US president added that tariffs help maintain peace and will play a decisive role in ending military conflicts. Let us recall that Senator Lindsey Graham has drafted a bill that provides for the most extensive sanctions against Russia since the beginning of the war. The bill is aimed at forcing the Kremlin to end its aggression against Ukraine and to sit down at the table for real negotiations. Special attention in the bill is given to the energy sector. It is proposed to introduce 500% tariffs on all goods of Russian origin, as well as similar duties for countries that continue to buy oil, gas, uranium, and petroleum products from Russia. The US Department of Defense has developed plans to sell or transfer Tomahawk missiles in the event that Donald Trump gives the corresponding order, writes the New York Times. It is still unclear how many Tomahawk missiles the United States could provide, how Ukraine would safely store them, and what impact a limited number of missiles would have, writes the New York Times. The Financial Times reports that the US will manage the Tomahawk cruise missiles if they are transferred to Ukraine. The head of the president's office, Andriy Yermak, reported that a delegation of Ukrainian officials currently visiting the United States met with representatives of Raytheon, which manufactures Tomahawk cruise missiles. The Ukrainian delegation also met with representatives of another American company, Lockheed Martin.
Their technologies save lives. F-16s and modern air defense systems protect the Ukrainian sky. And their offensive solutions reliably support our forces at the front.
Yermak added that Ukraine's cooperation with American companies continues to grow. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov stated that the transfer of American Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine would cause colossal damage to Russian-American relations. Dictator Vladimir Putin has already declared that the supply of American long-range Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine would lead to an entirely new level of escalation. including in relations between Moscow and Washington. Propaganda Telegram channels are already claiming that Trump will allegedly send the first batch of Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine as early as next week. Earlier, Trump stated that, in a certain sense, he has made a decision regarding whether to supply Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, but he wants to know what they will be used for and where they will be sent.
The Kremlin is losing control over the Far East. This was reported by the Foreign Intelligence Service of Ukraine. The agency notes that the aggressor country is increasingly paying its war allies with its own territories, thus lacking the resources to develop the country's largest region, the Far Eastern Federal District. The Kremlin is opening the door to external expansion. At the same time, China is increasing its economic influence. According to forecasts, investment in the Far Eastern region could reach 1 trillion rubles by 2025. Intelligence reports also state that China is conducting a creeping demographic expansion. According to the agency, up to 2 million Chinese people already live in the territory from Vladivostok to the Urals, and this number is increasing. Meanwhile, according to foreign intelligence, North Korea is carrying out a labor expansion. Over the past year, more than 15,000 North Korean workers have arrived in the Far East, and unofficially, the number may be as high as 50,000. The agency concludes that all of this could create a conflict of interest between the partners. Thus, the Kremlin risks losing influence over nearly 7 million square kilometers of its own territory, with a population of almost 8 million people. As financial and economic expert Andrei Novak noted on the Freedom Channel, China is pursuing a very shrewd policy by making Russia dependent on its resources. Moreover, China has other motives as well.
Sooner or later, it is highly probable that China will carefully choose the opportune moment when Russia is at its absolute weakest point in order to reclaim, with truly minimal bloodshed and very little resistance, all those historical territories that without any doubt genuinely and rightfully belong to China.
The expert reminds us that Russia spent centuries conquering lands in the Far East, and China will do everything possible to get them back. On Friday, October 17th, a decision may be made to establish a ceasefire for repairs at the temporarily occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. According to Sky News, this was stated by Alexei Likachov, the head of the Russian state nuclear energy corporation, Rosatom. According to the official, establishing a period of silence on the battlefield will make it possible to carry out work on 2 damaged power lines leading to the plant, one of which is located in territory occupied by Russia. IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi also confirmed that repairs to the power lines should begin in the near future. He noted that repairs are needed on both sides of the front line. Grossi stated that he is continuing consultations with Russia and Ukraine so that this work can continue over the next few days. According to him, both sides are ready for a temporary ceasefire. It should be noted that the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is currently being powered by 7 emergency diesel generators. As stated by Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiha, Russia deliberately severed the nuclear power plant's connections to the Ukrainian power grid in order to forcibly test the plant's connection to its own network. According to him, nothing like this has ever happened in the history of nuclear energy. On September 30th, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced that an emergency situation had occurred at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Due to Russian shelling, the plant has been cut off from power and the electrical grid. Zelensky emphasized that the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is being supplied with electricity by diesel generators, and this is an emergency situation, since neither the generators nor the plant have ever operated in this mode for such a long time. Earlier, the Director General of the IAEA warned that if all backup life support systems were completely shut down, there could be a risk of nuclear fuel meltdown. Hundreds of people were evacuated from the Crocus Expo exhibition center on the border of Moscow and the region. According to media reports, many people ended up outside without outerwear. The footage shows visitors leaving the building. However, as reported by the Telegram channel Moscow Life, the alarm turned out to be false. The evacuation occurred due to a technical malfunction in the system at Crocus Spa. Let us recall that in March 2024, one of the largest terrorist attacks in Russian history took place in the neighboring Crocus City Hall concert venue next to Crocus Expo. At that time, the terrorists opened fire on people before the start of the band Picnic's performance. In addition, the Crocus City Hall building was set on fire, as a result of which it burned down. Responsibility for the attack was claimed by the Afghan branch of the international terrorist organization Islamic State, which called it the most brutal attack in recent years. As a result of the terrorist attack, 150 people were killed. According to media reports, the US government warned the Kremlin about the planned attack. However, the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin rejected the warnings and called them provocative statements aimed at intimidating and destabilizing society.